Here's everything you might have missed in Moon Knight Episode 2. Welcome back, you Marvel maniacs, to our weekly breakdown of all things Moon Knight. This week's episode was full of creepy cults, Khonshu convolution, and plenty of Easter eggs and hidden details for good measure. We're going to break it down for you in just a moment, but as always, if you prefer to read all about it, Rosie Knight has you covered on Nerdist.com. Now, it should go without saying that to talk about this episode in detail, we have to spoil what happens in Moon Knight Episode 2, Summon the Suit. So if you haven't seen it yet and you can't separate your waking life from your dreams, then leave now before it's too late.
I must warn you, what you're about to see is going to melt your brain, yeah?
Alright, let's get into it, shall we? Speaking of Stephen's waking life, while he hears echoes of his Moon Knight at the museum and his battle with the Anubis-like jackal monster, he wakes up back at home in his bed. He tries to seize the day, only to find the day has seized him. As Stephen walks across Trafalgar Square towards the museum, the camera flips upside down again, playing with perspective to reinforce Stephen's increasingly distorted perception of reality. Between his chunks of missing time, voicemails to a mother who probably isn't real, and finding a mysterious mercenary's cell phone in his apartment, Stephen is feeling untethered to say the least, which is ironic considering how he started his day. At the museum, we encounter JB, the otter video watching guard again. Named for Moon Knight production assistant J.B. Ballard, he invokes a famous Sherlock Holmes story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, it's a mystery that revolves around reports of a demonic hound terrorizing the English countryside. So Stephen's claims of a giant dog-like monster tearing up the bathroom at work makes for an apt comparison. Unfortunately for Stephen, though, he gets fired and he's forced to turn in his name tag. Apart from being one final indignity for him, it's also a symbolic moment. He's forced to give up a part of his identity. Maybe it's even hinting that by letting Marc and Khonshu in, Stephen might lose himself altogether. Naturally, Stephen does what any one of us would do if we were in crisis. He finds the nearest living statue to trauma dump on. In this case, it's the same golden statue man as last week, who was confirmed by the credits to be Crawley. Now, for those who don't know, in the comics, Crawley is a homeless man who works alongside Moon Knight as an informant to help him fight crime. And while last week Crawley was completely unfazed by Stephen, this week he has a visible reaction when Stephen hugs him. Whether they're friends or not, that remains to be seen, but clearly this living statue isn't made of stone. Stephen then goes to investigate Marc Spector's mysterious storage locker to get answers to his burning questions. The locker is number 43, which could reference Marc Spector Moon Knight number 43, an issue focused on a topic that's particularly relevant to this series and the MCU's multiverse obsession, and that is doppelgangers. This Infinity War tie-in issue titled Multiple Maniacs finds Marc battling multiple evil duplicates of heroes like Black Knight, Daredevil, and Spider-Woman. The door of the storage locker also has a QR code on it, which eagle-eyed viewers spotted as well in the National Art Gallery in Episode 1. If you scan the code, you get redirected to Marvel's website where you can find a variety of free Moon Knight comics. The storage locker is full of weapons, clothing, cash, and a cot, everything you'd need as a soldier of fortune trying to keep a low profile. And of course, there's also that magical scarab that everyone and their mother is after. Marc's passport also contains some valuable information as well. We see that he was born on March 9th, 1987, making Marc likely around 36 to 38 years old, depending on when this show takes place in the MCU timeline. That question has largely eluded us thus far, and even in interviews Marvel execs and creatives, they've been pretty cagey about giving us a direct response.
Would you be able to tell us when in the MCU timeline Moon Knight takes place?
I want to tell you that one of the best things about this show was it feels like a standalone project.
However, based on an advertisement for the Global Repatriation Council on a bus later in the episode, we can confirm this show takes place sometime between 2023 near Endgame and 2025 after Hawkeye. For those who don't remember, the Global Repatriation Council, or the GRC as it's called, first appeared in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Founded in 2023 after the events of Avengers Endgame, the organization sought to return people who were displaced by the blip to new homes. It's unclear when Moon Knight takes place exactly relative to shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but if it's concurrent with that show, it would be in 2023. If it's taking place after Hawkeye, that means it would take place in early 2025, hence the range of ages. Anyway, back to Marc Spector's passport. It also says that he is from Illinois, which is a nice shout out to the character's comic book origins. As we learn in Moon Knight number 37, Marc Spector grew up in Chicago, which is alluded to on this document. Of course, it could be a fake document, but it's a nice piece of connective tissue nonetheless. What follows is our first clear answer about what exactly is going on here. Stephen has a conversation with Marc's reflection where Marc explains that he is the avatar of Khonshu, the Egyptian god of the moon, and also that same snarky voice in Stephen's head who called him a worm in episode 1.
Go back to sleep, worm.
Marc says their role is to protect the vulnerable and deliver justice to those who hurt them, but Stephen has had quite enough.
Oh my god, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
While trying to run away with the bag full of Marc's illegal we get another horror movie moment with Khonshu. Voiced by F. Murray Abraham and performed by Kareem El Hakim, the monstrous deity is modeled after artist Declan Shalvey's iconic design from the acclaimed 2014 Moon Knight run alongside writer Warren Ellis. After a delightfully silly freeze frame, Stephen runs into traffic and nearly gets run over by Layla El Faouli. Played by May Kalamawi, we learn the shocking news that Layla is actually Marc Spector's wife. And while Marc was never married in the comics, this does seemingly confirm that she is a reimagined version of Marlene Al Raoun, Marc's lover and partner in crime fighting and eventual baby mama. While they're still technically married, Marc was apparently trying to divorce Layla in order to protect her. And although we don't get any further hints about whether she has connections to the Scarlet Scarab, the alter ego of Abdul Faoul, we do learn that she was something of an adventurer herself as well. Case in point, she and Marc spent a significant amount of time hunting for that mysterious golden scarab that Stephen woke up holding in the German village in episode 1. This golden MacGuffin is apparently a GPS to help find Amit's tomb, which is exactly why Arthur Harrow is so desperate to get his hands on it. As for Layla, she's understandably pissed. She thinks that Marc is seemingly hiding this from her. Marc is desperate not to show it to her because he thinks it's going to put her in harm's way. And while Stephen offers it to Layla freely with no strings attached, she's not convinced that this whole accent isn't a cruel and strange joke.
I'm not buying this, Marc. Use whatever accent you want. Yeah.
What she is convinced of, though, is that Stephen clearly knows his classical antiquities. We see books including Bad Laws, The Man in the Ice, Intervention, Oxford, and Leonardo, just to name a few. More importantly, we see some sparks flying between Stephen and Layla when they bond over Marceline de Bourvalmore's poem Les Séparés, which is about two heartbroken lovers. And my sincere apology to any French speakers, I've sacred my last bleu. Unfortunately, their meet-cute is cut short by a pair of detectives who search Stephen's apartment. In the credits, they're listed as Bobby Kennedy and Billy Fitzgerald. Now, fans of Jeff Lemire's run may remember a pair of sinister psychiatric hospital orderlies who routinely torture Marc Spector, and as it turns out, they are actually demon jackal-headed henchmen of Amit in disguise. And given what we've seen in the trailers thus far and later in this episode, something tells me this particular arc and these characters will play a major role in the episodes ahead. After discovering a bag full of cash and contraband, they take Stephen in for questioning. We see a snippet of Marc Spector's Interpol file as well, which is labeled as file number 1975. It's a reference to the fact that Moon Knight first appeared in 1975 in Werewolf by Night number 32. The agent assigned to the case is listed as Nick Pepin, or Nick Pepin, who's the show's production and development manager. He's worked on multiple MCU properties as well. Marc is apparently wanted for archaeological site homicides in Egypt, which references his origins in Moon Knight number 1, where the mercenary Marc Spector is part of a group led by the villainous Bushman who slaughters everyone at the site. Marc himself actually winds up dying there at the feet of a statue of Khonshu, only to be resurrected as the god's avatar of vengeance. As it turns out, these cops are actually part of Harrow's cult. I know, I'm shocked too. And they bring him directly to the man with the glass sandals. We get another nod to the comics when Harrow asks Stephen, do you think that Khonshu chose you because your mind would be easy to break or because it was broken already? In 2016's Moon Knight number 2, Khonshu tells Marc that he has a weak mind and that's why he was able to use him as his aspect so easily. As Harrow leads Marc through this weird commune he's assembled in London, he converses with a man in Spanish named Victor and says he's from the Yucatan. Now this could be a reference to Harrow's one and only comic book appearance in Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu number 2, where Harrow is conducting his Nazi experiments in the name of pain theory in, you guessed it, the Yucatan. Another fun Easter egg comes when a man named Chase brings over some freshly grown tomatoes to Arthur and Stephen. According to series creator Jeremy Slater, he's named after Moon Knight writer's assistant Chase Kroll. The commune, as it turns out, is what we thought was a temple of some sort in the opening of episode 1. This massive facility contains a theater area, a hydroponic garden, and facilities to house seemingly dozens of cult followers. During their conversation, Arthur reveals that before he was a creepy cult leader, he was actually Khonshu's previous avatar, the Fist of Vengeance. Now that nickname is a bit of an amalgamation of terms and nicknames given to Moon Knight over the years. Moon Knight comics have had subtitles like Fist of Khonshu and titles like Vengeance of the Moon Knight, and those creators are all thanked in the credits. However, the Fist of Vengeance nomenclature actually comes from 2020's Avengers number 34 as well during the Age of Khonshu arc. Arthur then disses his former deity by saying,
None of the gods respect him.
Now, I don't know about you, but this has major Venom energy.
On my planet, I am kind of a loser, like you.
Now, regardless, Arthur confirms that his big beef with the Moon God versus Ammit is that Khonshu punishes the wicked after the fact, whereas Ammit punishes evildoers before they can commit crimes. The whole predestination angle seems fundamentally flawed, but Arthur presents it in such an even-keeled and thoughtful way, which I guess is why he's the bad guy, but hey, draw your own line.
I kind of draw a line there at child murder.
After Layla arrives on the scene with the scarab so she can rescue Steven, they have a bit of a communication error.
Summon the suit.
Summon the suit? What are you saying?
The suit.
The suit?
Using the Coptic language of ancient Egypt, Arthur summons another jackal monster that we learn is completely invisible to Layla. This helps explain why it didn't show up on the security cameras earlier and should hopefully reassure Steven just a little bit that he really did see what he saw.
What are you doing, you donut?
Now, before they can die in an evil magician's man cave, Steven falls out a window doing a superhero landing as he transforms into the Mr. Knight costume before eventually falling over. A far cry from the ceremonial armor that Marc Spector wore last week, this costume first appeared in 2011 Secret Avengers as drawn by artist Michael Lark. However, it was Declan Shalvey's artwork of the bright white Mr. Knight costume in 2014's Moon Knight comics that made this into a true fan favorite. In the comics, Mr. Knight feels like a distinct personality from Moon Knight, a much smoother operator and a more charismatic public figure. Here, though, it comes from the obvious misunderstanding of Stephen Grant being told to summon the suit. Naturally, he thinks of men's formal wear, and it's a neat way to differentiate Stephen and his sensibilities from Marc and his. Now, during the fight, Stephen riffs on Muhammad Ali's iconic float like a butterfly, sting like a bee quote before getting yeeted into a nearby double-decker bus. On the side of the bus, we see that aforementioned GRC ad promising to reunite you with your better half. Here, it's a fantastic double entendre, as not only is it talking about reuniting people who were victims of the snappening, but also referencing Stephen and Marc's relationship with Layla, Khonshu, and each other, depending on who you think the better half actually is. On top of the bus, though, we see something more interesting. WBN 0032. This is shorthand for Werewolf by Night number 32, Moon Knight's canonical first appearance in the comics. As the episode reaches its climax, we see Stephen finally agree to give Marc control of the body, leading to an epic rooftop chase, and Moon Knight using his signature moonerangs, or crescent blades if you nasty. The sequence ends with the jackal getting impaled on a spire under the moonlight, a tough conversation between Marc and Stephen, and Arthur getting the scarab. More importantly, though, we see Khonshu threatening to turn Layla into his next avatar, which based on what we've seen thus far of Marc and Arthur, seems pretty unpleasant to say the least.
Oh. Sorry.
While Layla, or the Marlene Al-Raoun character she's seemingly based on, has never been Khonshu's avatar in the comics, there have been several female Moon Knights in the past. In Marvel Knights 2001 Millennial Visions, we saw Marc Spector's daughter Jessica take over the mantle from her father, who was dying from cancer. In 2019's Moon Knight Annual number 1, we saw Moon Knight team up with various avatars of Khonshu across history to defeat Kang the Conqueror, Kang Watch, including the Mesopotamian Moon Knight, a woman from ancient Mesopotamia with a mask and brutal claw weapons. But perhaps an even cooler Kang Watch, an MCU connection, is from 2021's Kang the Conqueror number 2, and that featured a female Moon Knight who's revealed to be none other than a version of Ravonna Renslayer, everyone's favorite TVA judge, who we last saw previously on Loki. And while I don't expect this to play out in the MCU, it would make for one hell of a cool episode of television, so fingers crossed for Loki Season 2!
What?
The episode ends with Marc still in control, heading to Cairo, where next week he'll presumably face off with Harrow and his cult on the hunt for Ammit's tomb. Anyway, folks, there you have it. That is everything we spotted in Moon Knight. We'll have plenty of other theories, deep dives, and explorations of the MCU in the days ahead, but for now, though, tell us, what did you think of Moon Knight Episode 2? Did you spot anything that we missed?
Wait for it.
How long am I waiting?
Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.